Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Screen, a Dungeon Master talk show. Today, we are going to answer any chat questions that you might throw our way, talk about some stories, and just reminisce about the game D&D that we all love. The game where we make stuff up and the rules only somewhat matter. But let's see who's at our table today. I'm Nerdy Teacher. You can find me on TikTok mostly, and I do have an Etsy store, Ocrit, where I sell D&D stickers, and new ones are in the works. So I'm about to do a major shop update, so keep an eye out for that.
Nice.
I also play here on Crypt and Cryptids with the Mountain of Mystery group, but we are taking a quick little break due to the American holiday that's coming up. We will be playing again on, I believe it's July 13th, whatever that Saturday is. I think it's around July 13th. And we also host Roll for Cake, which Maude, do we know if there's a scheduled game for that yet? On the 3rd. Oh, okay. Hello, Pupper. All right, so on the 3rd, we will have our Roll for Cake episode, and it will be the next to last episode right before the live event. So that's going to be amazing. Thank you. Yes. I adopted a puppy. So if you hear anything, it is him. All right, let's go down the list.
It sounds
here.
like a very disgruntled elderly gentleman, just sort of like sitting behind the computer.
He took exception to that, apparently. He is a 1-year-old puppy, and he has the deepest voice of any dog that I've ever owned. I don't know where it came from, and it kind of scared me the first time he howled at me. But let's go to Beardic Inspiration. I've been following him on TikTok for a long time now and love his videos. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Beardic. Oh, did we just lose him?
I think we did.
Oh no, we just lost him.
Perfect timing.
Well, to the next person who I have, again, been following on TikTok for a very long time. I love your videos. Mr. Dandy DM, would you please introduce yourself?
Of course. Greetings, beautiful nerds. I am Mr. Danny DM. I can be found on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all the socials. I am the Dungeon Master for Our Flag Means Doom and for the Survivors of Ashkelon and Shadows of Ashkelon, all of which are actual plays that I run that can be found on YouTube. And I am really looking forward to answering any and all questions and telling some stories.
Awesome. And on that note, you'll see in the chat, you might have to scroll up just a little bit now to see it, but there is a link where you can post your questions where we can see it, and I will moderate that as well. But let's move on. Next is Chaotic Nerd, who I've met recently on TikTok and just found out the other day that he paints miniatures. So we're going to have to figure out a time where we can do that together.
Outstanding. Hi, I am Chaotic Nerd. I go by Charles as well. I am mostly on TikTok, where I post quick videos of me painting miniatures. Trying to get my subscribers up to go live so I can do that more. But like Nerdy said, I'm probably going to end up joining one of her lives to do miniature painting with her once I get my studio set up a little more.
Awesome. Okay. We'll see if we can't get you some more followers from this video as well.
I hope so.
And Dark Crescent Studio, who has been so generous in giving us items for donations for both Mountain Mystery and Roll for Cake. She has her own dice making store where I think all of us were perusing just a few minutes ago. But she has made some wonderful dice, and I think Dustin requested the one with skulls, right? But would you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Hello, I am Dark Crescent Studio. I usually go by Jay because I don't expect anybody to remember my full name. I DM for our tiny little group. I don't typically tend to stream my gaming group because my players are menaces. But you can find me on Twitch, Facebook, Instagram. My shop's on Store Envy. But most of my streaming is usually working on dice, painting minis, doing wood burning, some gaming. But, you know, it's been fun hanging out with y'all, so.
All right. Welcome back, Beardick. That was good timing. Oh, and maybe we'll see. Okay. But we are going to go to Wolfpack Dice next. Would you please introduce yourself to our audience? Again, another dice maker, and I've been following them on TikTok. They make very pretty dice as well.
Hey, thanks. Greg from Wolfpack Dice. I typically DM on Saturdays for an amazing group of cosplayers. We don't stream either because we like to be in our PJs and relaxing. Don't want to have to do all the makeup, and I don't want to get all did and make this any prettier than it needs to be on stream. But I've been playing D&D since I calculated it for this show, since 1982. Started really getting into it when I was in the service because it was nothing to do on a submarine, but play D&D. So used to play D&D in the vertical launch space of a 688 submarine, which was
Nice.
awesome place to play Dungeons and Dragons. I've been DMing for about 20 years now through 3rd edition, 4th edition, I even played 4th, and then 5th. I typically just play D&D, though starting to get into other TTRPGs now, like Candela Obscura and Daggerheart, starting to branch out a little bit, but always been a D&D lover. Started making dice during COVID because trying to find something I could do with my son, introduce him to Dungeons and Dragons, and we couldn't find a set of dice that we liked. So a YouTube video said, I can do that. And here we go, 2.5 years later, a dice maker on TikTok.
Awesome. Okay, and we got our technical difficulties out of the way with Beardick. Hopefully you're sticking around now this time. Beardick, would you please introduce everybody? I don't know if you heard, I said before I realized you had dropped off that I'd been following you on TikTok for a long time and really enjoyed your videos. So please share who you are with everybody.
Thank you very well, thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I'm Beardick, and I'm on all the socials, but mainly you'll see me in the TikTok area or Instagram. I make 5e related content. Character creation videos are kind of my specialty over there, but I have a link tree. You can check out my coffee page where I kind of make little gadgets and gizmos to bring technology to your table in a less invasive way, a way to make your game cooler. And I like to play around making customized deluxe character sheets. I've been playing 5e and Call of Cthulhu for probably about 15 years now or so. A lot of that time I've been running the games and enjoying that role, but every now and then I do get to play. A side project I have right now is with the Beggar Talk Book Club. You'll find us on TikTok, and we're trying to spread awareness, let people know about some of the amazing other TTRPGs that are out there. Not that Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder and the headliners aren't awesome as well, but there are great games out there like Coyote and Crow and Brindlewood Bay, and we're just trying to shine a little bit more of a light on games like that as well. And if anybody listening is going to be at San Diego Comic-Con in just a few weeks, you can say hi to me there. And I will be at the first ever Mysticon in Vista, California here in October. But very excited to be here with you all.
Okay, that sounds fancy. All right, love it. And you bring up a great point. While this is a Dungeon Master Talk show and we can talk about D&D, we are not limited to that. Now, I know other systems, but I've mostly played D&D 5th edition, but you can talk about any editions that you have played or any other games that you have played, especially if we get a question like, what do you think about such and such rule, but you know a Pathfinder variant or something. Absolutely, we can talk about whatever we want. So chat, we don't have any questions yet from you, so let's see, I'm going to see if I can pop in that link one more time. There we go. Go ahead and leave us a question so that we can help you out if you have any questions for us in particular or about TTRPGs in general. But while I let you guys think about that and let that simmer in, let's go down the list of questions that normally will get asked. Let's see. That's a good one. What gaming experience have you had that you truly enjoyed, and if you could go back and like experience it for the first time once again, what would that be? Now, this could be from a moment from your campaign that you really enjoyed, or just a group in general. What's something that you've experienced as a dungeon master that you would love to experience again?
Oh, I know how to. Okay, so if nobody else has any objections, I have
for
an
it.
experience that immediately popped into my head.
Go for it.
I would say one of the experiences that I just had as a DM with my players was this past New Year's. It was kind of, I very rarely get sort of the, the pie in the sky, like ideal version of what I want to have happen for a group of players in my game. Like, because as I am sure all of you are aware, everybody is, all the players do whatever they want, and they create chaos and destruction, and they leave nothing untouched. And so I had this idea in my mind for New Year's that I wanted to have a crossover episode. And by that, I mean, I run multiple games, all of which take place in the same universe. All of them have different casts, but they all are happening around the same time as each other, but they're in different parts of the world. And so there was a unique opportunity to bring two of those parties together. And so it was this really incredible episode on New Year's where I got to have two parties who knew about each other, wait, there was even a moment in one session where like, wait, are we in like the same city as the other group? And I was like, maybe. Haven't encountered each other yet. That's interesting. But it was sort of like this perfect storm of amazing awesomeness that happened where I got to do a crossover episode, and it was like literally like Avengers Endgame level epic. And I was waiting for one of them to say, yeah, I can't do it, I can't be there at the last second, and none of them did. Everybody got there all at the same time, and it was sort of like this awesome sort of synchronicity that took place. And it was just a almost 7-hour long session that we started in 2023 and we ended in 2024. And it was great. If I could do that all again, well, hell, I'm going to make it happen. It's going to happen again. I'm almost positive I know how to make it work again. But I really enjoyed that experience.
And you just doomed it, man. You just doomed it.
I know. I just jinxed myself. I put it out there in the universe. The universe is basically going to be
just
like,
kept that close in, and
yeah.
I mean, if anybody doesn't mind that I go next, my best adventure or inspiration from behind the screen, being the DM, I just got done finished being a player with a group, right? And most of those players were like, hey, we want you to DM. You're an experienced DM. Let's see how you do it. I'm like, okay, cool. What do you guys want to run? They're all like, Descent into Arvinus. I'm like, cool, I can do that. So we're doing session 0, we're prepping, and I explained to them, like, all right, how do you guys want to start this? Do you want to be escaping from the city? Do you want to meet the refugees? They're like, no, we're in town. I'm like, wait, what? They're like, no, we want to be in Evitel when it falls. And I'm just like, wait, what? They're like, yeah, no, we want to be in the city when it falls. I was like, okay, let's roll the dice and see what happens. So I've got to, so like now I'm like, this is really cool because this is not something that has happened to me before. And mostly it's been yeah, we're gonna stick with the okay. Here's A, here's B, here's C. These guys literally went, no, we want to fall into hell with them.
Ooh.
I'm like, okay, well, there goes all of chapter 1. Right out, session 0. And I'm just like, yeet. So, yeah, that's been one of my favorite moments as a DM so far.
I have a moment that if I could get it to happen again, it would be glorious. I don't necessarily think it's going to with my chaos gremlins.
Fair.
But the first time that as a DM that we'd had something set up and my players just took it and ran with it, and I just had to sit there and do nothing and let them. Like, they took the whole scene, they decided they were going to have it, and all I had to do was answer a few questions, and they had what branched into a story that I still tell at fairs 3 and 4 years later. Which was, you know, we had the way I'd set up this campaign initially was in a way so that players could drop in and out and all you'd miss was XP. Because it was my first time DMing, and it was, they'd go in, it was Guildhall style, you'd pick up a mission, we'd go run it, you'd come back, and then if you missed something, you missed something. We didn't have story yet at that point. So one of the players that dropped in and out, he was a Dragonborn barbarian who hated both goblins and wizards. Guess what we have in the party? So he manages to finally catch on towards the end of the mission. They get back into town and he goes, "Hey, can you meet me out back? I need to talk to you about something."
Uh-oh.
And the paladin and the cleric catch this and they follow out and they're like, "Okay, what's going on?" The Dragonborn punts the goblin up onto the roof. Cleric and paladin look at each other and go, No, that's our goblin. Look at each other. Path to the grave. Then rolls a nat 20. Kills him in one shot. Spare the dying.
Oh.
Goblin looks over. "Hey, tie him up. I've got an idea."
Oh boy.
They tie him up. They leave him in a room. Go across town, find the sleaziest hookers they can, and be like, "Hey, it's our buddy's birthday."
Oh,
And this
no.
dude fails 2 of his con saves and gets infected with magical STDs that they made me pull out of the 3.5 book of erotic fantasy, and they bankrupted him getting himself cured. And all I had to do was sit back and go, "Okay, this is happening." Like, if I can get more stories like that out of my players, just like taking it out of my hands and running with it and getting to experience my players having that joy again, I would love that.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
This is why I don't stream with my players.
Oh, that's fair. I get that. I've had those tables where it's like, I don't think we can keep this at a PG-13 level.
The phrase,
that's
"It's not a war crime the first time," has been chucked around my table repeatedly.
Yep. Wow.
I think for me, one of the biggest things that I would want to see again at the table, I typically, in my earlier years, most of my tables were just guys. I mean, I was on a submarine and, it was guys. And the campaign I'm playing in now is like half and half, half female, half male, which brings a lot of intricacy and differences to the role-playing aspect. And one of my players, she's a twin tiefling. Her backstory is there was a destiny prophecy that one of them would bring about the end of the world. So giving me that backstory, I've been running with it, and her sister was part of the the big bad evil girls troop. So every time they would clash or run into each other, the two of them would come face to face and spar off. And we got to this final scene where her and her sister were face to face, and she had to make a judgment call on what she wanted to do. And I gave it totally up to her. And in the midst of her then having an emotional reaction and really getting into it and crying, she punted her sister off this rock face and killed her as she fell down. And then Misty stepped and caught her and got down. And she was just visibly shaking and crying. And other people in my campaign were also getting emotional, because I run my death saves very similar to Matt Mercer, where it's Revivify just doesn't happen. You have to do the rolls, you have to do that. The spirit has to willingly come back. But when she killed her sister, she saw the instant when the dominate person wore off and her sister's eyes came back to her sister, and the immediate regret of right there of oh my God, what did I just do? And just, I've never had that much emotion, like raw emotion in an episode or in a session or in a campaign ever. And afterwards I had to reach out to her and ask, did I overstep? Are you okay? Is everything good? I'm so sorry. And she loved it. She was all in on it, and she thought it was great. And I think that's a feeling as a DM, when your story can rip that level of emotion out of a player, that just put me on cloud nine. I was like, okay, I'm doing this right. So that was just amazing. And if I could have those type of situations again, where your story and what you set up elicits that type of response or emotion from your players that are that invested in what you're doing, I don't think it gets any better than that.
Oh, I know. Our DM Dustin would agree. His favorite thing is when he can get a player to cry, not because he made them cry, but because they're that emotionally invested.
No. I've seen the streams. I'm pretty sure that man has a jar sitting on the shelf where he's just collecting your tears.
One of my stickers that is going to be up on my shop soon might be one that says "Tears of My Players" to put on mugs. Beardic Inspiration, do you have a story that you'd like to share?
Yeah, and I feel a little unprepared for this, because unfortunately in my story, no one gets punted. And it seems like that started to become a theme.
I was like, why didn't
So
I mention a
apologize.
punting of some kind?
So my primary in-person group right now, I have a few games that I run, but my primary in-person group is my neighbor and his kids. They live just down the street from me, and we hit it off really well right around COVID. Right before COVID, we started playing together. I found out that they were very interested in the idea of learning to play D&D. They had never touched it, but always wanted to. So it was a fun experience teaching that to them as we started playing. But because I didn't know where this was going to go, I didn't necessarily do a whole lot of advanced homebrew and planning. And the bottom line is, this was mid to late 2019, and 2024 we're still playing. And I think it was early last year I made the realization that I was an improv kid. I am completely comfortable generating this world and the lore for them as we continue to play. And I keep a little recorder on my table when I know I'm about to start to really BS, so I can have that in my notes and it remains canon even though I improvised it. But I thought, wouldn't it be great if there was a way for us to kind of catch us up as a group on this world that we've been playing in a way that's really going to stick with them. And there's a game that I had always wanted to try called Microscope. And I don't know if any of you've heard that. It is a TTRPG that was all about storytelling and building a timeline. And over the course of play, you establish your main end cap of history, your main starting point of history. As you take turns, you add either major moment in your timeline, or you add on to previously generated moments,
Hmm.
or you get really specific into a moment. You actually act out and improvise a scene to specifically find out what happened that specific day. And once I had started playing with this group, I am big on time tracking, so I created a calendar for the world we were all playing in, and I came up with some generic fantasy names for the months. But when it came time for us to play Microscope, I created this big map on butcher paper, and then I put out a big lettered list of the names of the fake months in my world, and then all of the big names that they had heard about and all the places that they had been. And kind of the pregame was to, let's figure out where these places are that we've already been exist on this physical map here. And then we proceeded to create a timeline for this world where the end point in history was now, and we created a starting point thousands of years prior to that. And we just spent maybe 6 sessions going around the table carving out this world and a history, and it was so satisfying to see the level of engagement I got from these players, and the payoff in that as we continue to play together, because they'll bring up lore or they'll bring up history or something about the region they're in, and it's not because it's something I made up and they remember. They're remembering it because they helped create those moments or the historical tie-ins to these places. And it's just, man, it is so cool, and I will always strive for moments like that
That is
in
awesome.
running games, because it's made it so much more fun. Not that it wasn't fun already. So yeah, huge payoff as far as what I was looking for. Very happy with how that went. That's something I'll always be looking for in games.
That is really cool. We play something here on stream called One Quiet Year, which is only
Mhm.
1 year
Oh
in
yeah.
a timeline, but it sounds kind of similar to that, and it's been fun to play.
Yeah.
That sounds really cool.
One thing I do want to I stress, and I made this clear to them, I didn't hide this from them. The things that they've established in the timeline aren't necessarily what actually happened. It's what the majority of the people believe to have happened in their time. So
Mhm.
there's a bunch of religion and mythology mixed in there besides what is considered historic, but I'm the only one who knows what really happened, and it's sometimes fun to play with those differences.
That is.
And there were some spots on the map that I George Lucas. And I said,
What a
"You can't-
cool twist.
This area's off limits."
That's really cool. I'll tell you mine real quick. It's one I hadn't shared yet on any of these episodes. It's actually not even my idea as a dungeon master. It was one of my players when he wanted to start DMing. We were in the middle of our campaign together that was about 2 years long, and he asked if he could do every other Saturday or something and start a different campaign, kind of sci-fi, cyberpunkish, but still set in medieval fantasy. He liked to, bend the tropes and stuff like that. So we agreed. We started the campaign, and we would play for 4 to 6 hours, depending. And it wasn't until the very end of the first session that we all started to catch on what he was doing. We had our characters. We all started in, the usual spot. We went through and met a bunch of NPCs, and we ran into a group that just had that feeling like deja vu. Like, I know this group. Where is this group from? Turns out that he took my campaign and made a parallel universe where everything is slightly different. So his character in this universe was now running a very Robin Hood-like thieves guild. And as a warlock, he had an imp with him that he called Chuck. Well, in this universe, that imp was an incubus named Chet. And all of the females at the table were like, holy cow, that guy's hot. We need to, that's supposed to be Chuck. Uh-oh. It was a weird feeling of being very intrigued with this one character, this NPC, and then suddenly realizing that in the other universe, he's a imp. But that was so much fun to go through because we would get to situations or places or find people, and we'd either know instantly what it was, or we'd have to sit there and think, like, who is this person in our campaign? And we would have communication with text messages back and forth, like, do you think it's this person? Nope, it's gotta be this person. That was unique, and we had so much fun with that. And he eventually had his own storyline, but just the start of his campaign being like our world, just a different universe, was so much fun. So just an idea out there for any dungeon masters that would like to take that. Let's see what questions we have gotten. Let's start with this one because it has been asked a couple of times and we have new DMs here so we can get their answers. DMs, which of your NPCs has been your favorite to play thus far? Thank you, J-Lo Fett, for that question.
That was J-Lo's question?
That was J-Lo's question, yes.
That says you have a story because that player knows.
J-Lo is one of my players in my campaign.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, they're all making me blush in here in the chat. My players are freaking awesome.
Nice.
I guess I'll go since J-Lo asked it. I got two. For the whimsical, has to be Sebastian. Or Sabatine. So Sebastian is an elder fae, an ancient fae in my world. He is got long white hair with golden eyes, and he is extremely, extremely good with calm emotions, charm, friend. And he pops up in the world now and again when you need him, and you come in and there's a tavern, and you walk up to the bar and he knows exactly what drink you want, and he appears as whatever creature or thing you as a player are most attracted to. So if you are most attracted to elves, he is the most good-looking elf you have ever seen. Ears perfect, hair is perfect, eyes are perfect. He knows exactly what to say. If you're a tiefling, whatever it is, he shows up as that, just to give you some respite and to give you some rest and information and help you along on your journey. So when I first introduced them, they all had come down, they were on this skyship, they all had come down and entered the bar separately by accident, and each one of them met a different version of Sebastian. So the two female characters met Sebastian as a tabaxi and as a tiefling, and then J-Lo's character met Sabatine as a Aasimar. Right, so it was funny because then afterwards they're all talking like, wait, no, he was a tiefling. No, he was a tabaxi. So for the longest time they couldn't figure out what he was and what he did. So that was a lot of fun because they rolled, thank goodness, they rolled horribly on all their wisdom checks. So my charms worked every time, friend worked every time, and the drinks, it just worked flawlessly. So he's a lot of fun to play. And then my favorite NPC that they first met is a dwarven cleric named Sister Mary Clarence. And she's a little spitfire and kind of took them under their wing to kind of get them rolling and get them moving in the first thing. So she's one of my favorites.
That sounds amazing. Oh, I might have to use that idea. All right. Would anyone like to go next? Your favorite NPC?
I know I have my favorite NPC, and then I know that I have my player's favorite NPC. My favorite NPC is the guild leader who started my players off, because, I'm playing in Tal'Dorei because it was a system or a world that I was fairly familiar with, rather than trying to just throw myself under the bus with creating everything from scratch. And So she was the one that kind of like is like, hey, I understand that some of you are coming from backgrounds that are problematic, shall we say. And so and she's like, it's okay. We're going to bring you in. You can work through the guild and we're going to help you. And currently my players are on a quest to go find her because the guild lost track of her going between the Hells, the Shadowfell, and the Fey Realm because of an overarching larger problem that they've now come across. And I adore her because she's essentially the Planewalker Ranger or the Horizon Stalker, whichever the subclass is, mixed with an entertaining cleric class. And she's a lot of fun to have my players deal with. But then my players love the one that I came up with on an absolute whim because one of these chuckles decided to cast Speak with Plants on a pumpkin.
Oh no.
And I ended up somehow doing this very high-pitched southern accent for a pumpkin. And they absolutely tripped over themselves loving this, and they roasted me for a solid 20 minutes going like, how was this your best voice acting work for an NPC? And I'm like, I put all this effort into all of the fun, cool NPCs that you could have and meet and love, and you fall in love with the pumpkin? But that's players for you.
That tracks. Yeah, that's pretty normal. Oh my gosh, that's funny. Let's see, who's next?
I'll go.
So I'll go next if that works.
I think he has a slight delay, so let's start with Chaotic, and then Beardic, you can be next.
Perfect.
Sounds good. Like Dark said, there's two. There's the NPC that I enjoy playing, and then there's the NPC that my players love, or I should say, at least one of my players loves. The first one is the NPC I love to play, and that actually isn't a physical person. I gave my ranger a sentient house. She's connected to it via the back of her mind. She doesn't hear a voice. She gets little nudges. And the house is pretty much a TARDIS. It will rearrange itself for whatever new party member is in the group, if one leaves, if one joins, and it rearranges and it takes care of the players as well as the ranger.
Huh.
She absolutely loves the house. And it was a really great moment of emotional damage that I did to them with that NPC.
Oh no.
So, due to some hijinks between a teleport and a devil, or I should say a demon, my party got sent to the future. When they returned to their home base, they realized the house was in shambles. So my ranger, getting a very faint nudge of how to reactivate or re-energize the house, ended up giving up some of her life force to re-energize the house with a ward stone. And the house now has a full voice, can speak to her, and it is a 6-year-old little girl.
Oh my god.
That is the emotional damage I did to this ranger, which was great.
I was going to ask
Everybody
if it
loved
was
it.
Baba Yaga's hut, but no, not anymore.
No, not Baba Yaga. I haven't gone there yet. They haven't angered me for Baba Yaga's hut or the false Hydra.
I'm just imagining Baba Yaga's hut with a 6-year-old voice, though.
Right?
No.
Now, the NPC that I introduced that my players love, or I should say one player, I had them on an escort mission. This is the same group, the ranger. I have an artificer. I have a a paladin, and now a sorcerer and a wizard or druid. They during one of their escort missions, they find a abandoned handy haversack,
Okay.
and I took a completely random table that a D100. The very last one, the 100, was a goldfish in a self-sustaining bowl. My daughter rolled for it. She got because she's part of my group, she got the goldfish. I was like, okay, what am I going to do with this? How am I going to make this connect with her character? And she goes, I'm like, well, it's an astral goldfish. You do channel divinity and you realize it's an astral goldfish. She goes, okay, I want to communicate with it. I'm like, do you have speak with animal? She goes, no, but the ranger does.
Jeez.
I was like, okay. What? She goes, yeah. The ranger goes, yeah, I'll cast speak with animals. I'm like, okay, it's an astral goldfish. The goldfish offers my daughter a deal. If it can find a way to get it returned to the astral plane, it will be her warlock patron. So now, because she's also an artificer, she took the handy haversack and sewed it into her apron as the front pocket, and that's where she keeps the goldfish. And it has a name. It is Emma.
That's
That
cool.
is the NPC everybody loves because everybody can talk to Emma. And I'm just like, your warlock patron wants you to find a way to return it to the astral plane. Oh, and it wants you to feed it souls. So yeah, those are my two favorite NPCs.
Edgy. I love it. Oh my god. You threw me with the warlock patron part. Whew. Okay. I'm all right.
Could be worse.
see. Beardick, you're next.
So to go with what my players probably call their favorite, that's I don't know if someone would call him an NPC, but that would be Danny the Keep. And Danny was born out of my frustration after I gave my players that portable fortress that's in the Dungeon Master's Guide, that
Oh my gosh.
tower, and of the 5e, and they did. It got to me. They got so excited they went and looked it up in another copy of the Dungeon Master's Guide and found out all the info on this portable keep. And I was like, well, the discovery is gone. What do I do? How can I change this to change their expectations based on what they read? And I decided to make it sentient. I do love Doom Patrol. So Danny the Keep is Danny the Street, but portable as a fortress. And he communicates to them mainly through song, at least if he's in small mode, kind of like Christine in the Stephen King horror movie. He'll play a very, if he wants to charge him up, he might play some Ethel Merman. You'll be swell. You'll be great. If he's terrified, it might be Staying Alive, which has led for a really interesting and fun way to play around with failed stealth checks. It's not necessarily because the ranger slipped. It's because Danny got spooked and started playing some music while he was in the bag of holding. But my players love Danny, and I do too. They don't know this, but I'm never, no harm will ever become Danny. But they don't know.
The threat is
My
always there.
favorite NPC, though. Yes. My favorite NPC is born out of my growing up with a fascination and idolization of men with magical suitcases. And I specifically think of Professor Harold Hill from The Music Man. And I can't remember the character's name, but the male lead from Bedknobs and Broomsticks, who has this suitcase that the legs pop out from, and all of a sudden he has this shop that appeared from nowhere. And that was kind of the inspiration for Tom the Tincturer, I had read in some little bit of history. I can't remember if it was medieval or another period of time, but there would be these public executions, and sometimes there'd be a beheading, and after the beheading, people would dip their handkerchiefs in the blood that was spilled. If this was an individual who had some notoriety, because this was now a collector's item, it had some value to it. It may not be for the monetary value, it may be because of the prestige associated with that. And whatever I was reading, it referred to these as tinctures. So Tom the Tincture is really a sweet man. He's not very bright, but he came up with the idea that if people will have these macabre collector's items because the person who was executed was famous, maybe he could hedge his bets on some other executed individuals who might be found to have more renown later. So he has this collection of handkerchiefs that he has collected from various executions, and he's like, can I interest you in a tooth from a thief from the Upper West Side, things like that. So Tom, nicest guy in the world, sweetest NPC. He'll always have something weird and gross, hoping that it'll pay off in the long run as an investment.
Wow. That's all I have to say to that. Wow. That's slightly horrifying in my opinion, but that is amazing.
I think I'm right with you. I'm like, that is unbelievably epic and scary all at the same time. Like, I don't want to run into that guy in a side alley.
I think I'm going to adopt him. I'm going to
Same.
get right
That's
along with my
amazing.
players.
I mean, my
That
guys
is-
are in the middle of Hell to Tell, so him being alive there, you never know.
Let's see. And Andy, do you want to
You're
share?
all free to use him to charm or creep out your players.
So I've been sitting here and
Oh.
I've been thinking about the different games that I run and the different NPCs that my players have encountered. This is going to be, to start off, will be a slight cop-out answer, and then I'll go into some detail. My favorite NPC that I've ever played is the one that my players mispronounce the name of the most.
Hmm.
So I don't know if you guys use Fantasy Name Generator at all, but I will go on there and I will like compile lists and tables of different names that thing spouts out for me, and I'll be like, oh, that's cool. But inevitably, I will come up with some pretty elaborate names that my players, once they hear them, they're going to be like, yeah, we don't give a shit what you just said. We're going to come up with our own name for whatever that NPCs that you just are voicing now. So there was this one in sort of the main campaign that I run that's not online. There was this halfling rogue smuggler who went by the name of Pimpernel. And he was this just lovable, not incredibly smart, but he was lovable and he was good with a rapier. And everybody in the party loved him. But they never called him by his name. They always called him Pumpernickel. And he never had any problem with it because he just thought they were the coolest, and was always like, I used him as kind of like an emotional support dog for so many ways. Whenever a party member was having a hard time, little Pimpernel would just come up and be like, "Oh, don't worry, you're just the greatest. You're always so good with your axe, Tundo. You don't need to worry about anything. You're just fabulous, man. And we're always in the thick of it, and we're always being chased down by all kinds of demons and devils. But you've got a good head on your shoulders." He was always just being very encouraging to every single party member, up until the point where he ran afoul of some assassins and was brutally slain. But he is probably one of my favorite characters because he is incredibly fondly remembered like because he was with the party for so long, but then they still never remember that his name was actually Pimpernel, and they just call him Pumpernickel.
Now,
So-
when Pumpernickel gets slain, that's when the Geneva Convention becomes the Geneva Suggestion.
Exactly.
So they're going to learn. Was there anyone else? Okay. I have lots of NPCs that I've talked about before, but I think the most interesting one of late, I have a 6-year-old girl in my campaign that's an NPC. She's the adopted daughter of one of the Thieves Guild's members, and this guy basically took her in because as a drow, he knew what it was like to be, ridiculed or unwanted. So when she showed up, like on his doorstep, basically on the Thieves Guild's doorstep, he took her in. The players got really attached to him because, he's got a big heart and whatnot. And through him, they became attached to the little girl who starts to look at them as like her family. Well, as they were off adventuring, she got hold of a magic item that was kind of like a monkey's paw. It'll give you a wish, but there's some sort of curse that comes along with it. And I was rolling to see which character was going to end up with this magic item, and I get her. I'm like, oh crap, what would she wish for? And she would wish to be an adventurer just like her friends. So she woke up one day and she was 20 years old and knew how to fight, and she was like a 8th level fighter or whatever, and she found the group and just randomly showed up. Here comes this adult tiefling who is running towards them as if she knows them, and the group's like, who the hell is this? But
Oh, gee.
after they figured out what happened, they're like, okay guys, what do we do? Do we take her along with us and watch over her, or do we tell her to go home and know that she's not going to listen? So they brought her along, and the next fight that they did was a large demon character, very powerful one that was in somebody's backstory, and they brought her for the fight, and I rolled her, and yep, she did great. She was right up in the fray, but it's really weird to role play that, because after the fight she would run up to the person she looks to as the mom and says, did you see me? Did you see me? I ran right up in there and I wasn't scared at all. Did you see how he just chopped off their arm?
Brilliant.
A little mass
The weirdest
murderer.
character. So 20-year-old with the brain of a 6-year-old.
Oh look,
Ooh.
a little murder hobo.
Oh yeah, no. She has no morals.
At least that wasn't the result of a brew you cauldron going wrong.
Oh yeah.
That is a good point.
I don't know if anybody else here has actually played Bunkers and Badasses, but there is a delightful, mechanic to it that when you die, it's just like regular Borderlands. You come back at the nearest respawn station, but you get traumas. And most of those traumas are temporary. If you get killed brutally enough, there's a permanent table as well. But one of our players came back as in the body of a toddler, was the trauma that he rolled up. It was the psycho who very quickly died again, and also came back with the confusion of not understanding the difference between guns and food, and he roleplayed that beautifully. But yeah.
Wow. Okay, I would need an
So
example
I,
of that.
I played the actual game, but not the board game for Bunkers and Badasses, and now I just actually want to play it.
Nirvana has it. The GM toolkit is worth it.
Oh man.
I'm gonna have to go look for that now.
It is a very big box.
Well, let's take a look at another question for us from Lady Cass, a longtime lurker in our chats. What's your best advice for keeping a session moving when there is a large time constraint? Like 30 minutes each is what she says. Yeah, I can talk. 30 minutes each, which I have no idea how you would do a D&D session in 30 minutes. The least amount that I've ever done was 2 hours. But let's see if anyone can help us out here. What advice would you give to keep a session moving? First and foremost, I would make a rule about staying on task and not, suddenly talking about the newest episode of whatever show is popular at the time. You're going to have to really make sure that everyone is on topic. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to do that when you have that type of time constraint, and I know everybody hates the term railroad, but you almost have to give a very specific task and a time constraint. The magistrate wants this retrieved from here and back before sunrise, or else this happens or that happens. So there's a driving consequence that you give them as a DM for that time constraint, so they have to beeline it there and no side. I mean, that's how I think I would do it. It's create a consequence that drives them to want to complete the task as efficiently as possible.
Given the fact that I'm seeing in chat about like this would be a work game and it would be something along the lines of like on your lunch break, one of the big things is that I would say is tell all of your players, hey, let's all make sure that we have X, Y, and Z apps that we are using to keep track of all of your stuff. Make sure that you look at your spells. Think about what you're doing while the previous person is doing something. And actually like, hey, okay, you're doing this, so that impacts my plans here. Tell your players to actually pay attention. Like, that's going to be your biggest thing. And then, as dumb as it sounds, follow the KISS rule. Keep it simple, stupid. Like, you're sitting there on a very, very time crunchy thing. Don't sit there and worry about the mechanics of a fight so much. Like, oh, hey, we have a stat block. Let's face it, any DM out there will sit there and modify those stat blocks.
Oh, yeah.
If you're sitting there looking at, hey, we have a big fight coming up, that fight's going to drag out for 2 or 3 days, potentially. If you're sitting there following with a big group and it's lots of hit points, let your players follow a rule of cool. Roll it. Does it hit? Yes, no. Maybe plan for X amount of hits to do a thing, and then, okay, boom, something's done. Or, hey, you have this amount of damage, cool, it's close enough. And that way you can keep it moving. Another thing I would say was tell your players that, hey, you have 1.5 minutes to give me what you're doing on your turn, and then otherwise I'm skipping you, because we only have X amount of time before we got to get back on that floor. Like, it sounds railroady, but
Yeah.
Kind of.
Now that I understand the question a little better, the thing that I did in my campaign when there was a lot of opportunity for RP in between, I had a thing on my Discord called Keep the Story Moving. We did all of our RP during the week or before game via chat, where they would RP between each other. So when we got into game, it was all business, right? So all the RP happened behind the scenes off of the half hour. So that's another thing that you could do, is create some.
Did we lose him?
I think we did lose Wolfpack. I'm just gonna reiterate everything that Dark said as perfect agreement. That's basically the best way to do it. Railroad it and keep it simple, stupid.
Now, actually, I just want to add a thought before I lose it. Sorry if I'm interrupting somebody. You could either do what they said about keep all the role play like in chat on like Discord or something, or honestly, it sounds like it might be a better game to be more role play oriented in person, and then like battles can be like summarized down to like 1 or 2 roles. Just for example, like you go through and say, okay, you need to fight this imp. What do you guys want to do? You're going to cast Fireball. You're going to, attack it. Okay. If your players want to do more role play in person, then the battle needs to be extremely short and maybe that's what happens in chat. But yeah, whatever your players want to do, if they're more battle oriented, then yeah, role play off screen.
I just want to add in, don't assume that you have player buy-in for a type of game like this. Check first, because if you go to, and we're kind of framing this around coworkers on a quick break, if you're going to your coworker friends and saying, hey, we got a quick break, would you guys be interested in playing a D&D game during that downtime, they're probably all going to say yes if that's where their interest lies. But if you're of the mindset that, hey guys, just so you know, this is going to be a particularly snappy session of D&D. It's not going to be like your standard play. I just want to make sure everybody's on board for something like that, because I want to make sure things are moving along. That's a conversation to have beforehand, because if you have people who don't want to play a game like that, that's okay. We all want to play different kind of games, and if we're not on the same page, let's not try smashing a round peg into a square hole. So get that player buy-in first. And technique wise, for combat, everybody's got their tips and tricks. Personally, I've gotten in the habit of, you do your turn, you swing your axe, you roll your dice, you hit, we talk about the damage. Now I'm moving on to your turn over here, but I don't just say, hey, it's your turn. I'm going to say, okay, so-and-so swings her axe and lops off the nose of the half-orc. You're watching this stunned Jerry. What are you going to do now? So I try and make that snappy, but I try and throw these little quick recaps in there in case we got one of those people who's stacking dice or lost in their character sheet or their phone, to snap them out of it, remind them what's happening, and keep things on track.
And maybe also make sure that everyone is on the same page of what's expected during a D&D game, because I know when I had my lunch break working a retail job, I was on my phone. I wanted music. I wanted to listen to nobody's voice, because as an introvert, I wanted to check out for half an hour. And I love D&D, and I think that would be fun. But at the same time, I might play 1 or 2 sessions, and then suddenly I would decide that, no, I need my quiet time. You can play short games, probably. Maybe ones that last like 2 or 3 sessions, and then you move on. But expecting a campaign to work like this for a long time, that you're going to have to make sure that everyone's aware of what the expectations are. How are my DMs doing? Do we need a break at this point? Anybody good? All right.
I'm good.
Great. And if anybody needs to, go potty,
I'm
as
good
I
for
say,
right now.
since I'm a middle school teacher, you can step away and go take care of yourself. Is there anyone who would like to add this conversation before we go to the next question? I don't think everyone got a chance to speak.
I was just going to say, I don't mean to be a stick in the mud about the 30-minute game. Obviously, I think it depends on like how many people are in this game. I would almost, because in terms of my like imagination, it's not that I don't think that you couldn't do it like an in-person like 30-second or 30-minute game. I almost want to just take it completely off, or I want to put it completely online. Everybody gets in a chat app and it becomes a chat game, as opposed to trying to do something in person. Because for me, I feel like as a DM, I would not want to do something like that in person. For me, D&D, it would remove a lot of the role-playing aspect. And that's the thing for me as the DM that I really, truly enjoy, is being able to witness my players collaboratively tell a story. I don't know how to do that necessarily in 30 minutes without completely stripping out some of the things that, for me as the DM, I'm saying for me a lot, makes it the most fun. I feel like as a dungeon master, you suddenly become just the referee of that session, as opposed to somebody who is actively a part of telling that story. And so, yeah, I don't like it.
Not saying that it can't be done.
Not saying you can't do it. I probably would be able, given time, I could probably find a very interesting way to like put us all into a Discord channel, and we are constantly going back and forth and using all manner of different kinds of bots that you can use and integrations that you can use within Discord. Have like randomly generated NPCs that are constantly interacting with the different players because they're in a tavern or whatever. And it's so the players through chat and text are interacting with these, NPCs, and then I can sort of arbitrate or, handle combat in a hopefully a fun way. We only have 4 players right now and we work remote, so it's a 30-minute team building exercise. We may get to make it longer at some point. And I picked Frozen Sick to run first. Well, that's probably a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah, because Frozen Sick is a small module. So yeah.
If you have not heard about it, it kind of sounds like what you're describing is also similar to the narrative universe.
Or it's like narrative universe, yeah.
Where you have people who are the dungeon master, and then you guys go in with your chat whenever you're free, and you participate in the game that way. It's definitely possible, but as somebody who's done 12-hour games before, like once a week for 2 years, I can't imagine that. That feels foreign to me. But
Yeah. The
Ooh.
last thing I wanted to say on that, one of the
Barely
things I
enough
was
time
just
to unfold
thinking.
your DM screen.
Or unpack your dice.
yeah, takes us half an hour
Yeah.
just to shoot the shit and then start the game. Oh,
One thing I
Okay.
was thinking.
go ahead, go for it.
One thing I was thinking, and I posted it there in the chat. For a while there, I used to be a DM for Adventure League, which is kind of like, I would call it D&D light. Pre-generated adventures, usually 30 to 45 minutes. You level every time. Your character goes with you between adventures. That might be something to check out. I mean, very little DM prep. It's all scripted for you. It doesn't give a lot of time for RP and all that, but for team building, if that's what you're looking to do, I'd really check out Adventure League and boom, get it in, team build, gives you a scripted adventure to get through that you can get right through. So that might be something to check out.
I know on dmsguild.com you can buy Adventure League games, like pre-written one-shots and whatnot, but yours only lasted 45 minutes? Mine was 4 hours. I wasn't running it. I was playing.
Oh, I'll tell you, the Adventure Leagues that we were playing, especially in the lower levels, because, she's got 4 people that have never played before. So you're starting out at level 1, 2, or 3. You could get through an Adventure League module to get you to level 2 in about a half an hour, right? If you go through it and just kind of take out the role play and you focus on the team building and on what the action needs to be and how does the team come together to go and complete the task. If you keep it team building oriented, I think Adventure League might be a good way to go through.
Wolfpack Dice, I just saw the door behind you slowly open, just making sure that nobody's sneaking up behind you with a knife or anything, right? It's just
Sneak attack.
It's the old man. So my wife's a veterinary tech, and we rescued a surrender there, and we think he's about 13, 14-year-old black Cocker Spaniel that's blind and deaf. So he likes to hang right below my desk. So he comes in and out, and he was asleep, and then he got up and left, and then he came back in, and yep, he's the one that crashed me. He hit the little button down there and turned off everything in my office.
I didn't know what happened. That's hilarious.
I was wondering
yeah.
why. I was kind of wondering why you didn't just like stop. It was like everything went dark, and then you stopped.
Yeah,
So it was like,
Yeah.
It's like
everything
power
okay?
He bumped into the surge protector and dropped everything. I'm like,
Oh.
Uh,
Can I
Go
throw
ahead.
out one more tip for not just the person who asked the question, but anyone looking to play a game in a tight period of time? If you're open to looking at other systems,
Yes.
ninth level games has mazes, And last year for Free RPG Day, they had this really interesting product they had on the table that looked like a Mad Libs pad. It looked like a Mad Libs pad. And as you opened it up and went through it, it literally walked you through the game and taught you how to play. Everyone, including the DM. And it's an interesting system. I've not played it, but I'd love to look at it more. Each class is defined by a single die, and that die is what you roll every time you roll. So if you're a barbarian, it might be a D8. If you're a druid, it might be a D6, something like that. But I was on their website recently, and it looks like they have other versions of this product where it's like this Mad Lib pad that just kind of walks you through everything and makes it super easy. They stress no prep. So this is not me selling you on this. I have not played it myself, but I know it promises very little to no prep. And if these little modules they sell are like what they had for Free RPG Day last year, and it looks like they are, that could be a solution for a group that has a really tight time to play. And I would just recommend exploring that.
That sounds really good. I like that. Okay. I see we have a few more questions with the amount of time that we have left. We could probably answer 2 more. There's one I think that won't take us long at all, and we'll save that one for last. But what I would like is to answer this question sent in by Anonymous. But what is your biggest memory of players derailing your campaign? I had a Christmas story for a group. Oh, somebody's seething already. Oh my gosh. I had a Christmas story for a group I was DMing. They thought my hook looked cold. If that was a pun, that hurt. I can immediately think of 2. There's been many, but one, I had a giant naval battle ready to go. I had, a whole like ocean theme mat that I bought, and I made like little minis, paper, but little minis of the boats and whatnot. And I did research on nautical D&D rules and all this stuff. And my player shows up with a high-level druid who knows control water. And when he found out that the smaller of the ships, at least, are 100 feet long, he went, okay, I control water and remove the water for 100 feet in a square. What? How deep is the water? Deep enough so the ship just sinks, hits rock bottom, literally, breaks apart, and then at the end of his turn, he releases the spell so that water floods the spot again. And he's just doing that every turn until all of my naval ships, except like 2 of the big bads, were all gone. And I was proud and pissed off at the same time. But my other one in my most recent campaign was when I had a nobleman's manor that was abandoned many years ago that a thieves guild moved into. Boarded up all the walls, made tunnels in and out and whatnot. Thieves Guild's taken over this noble's home. And my group, for reasons, had to go inside of it and look for someone. Well, I laid out everything in that, basement floor, dungeon, the first floor, the second story. Everything was laid out for people going in there. They all realized, just 2 minutes before they were about to, jump in the window, they all realized that they had access to find familiar through one reason or another. They all summoned cats, and suddenly this became a pussy heist. Their words, not mine. So I literally was buffering at the table, how do I take everything that has traps made for people and turn it into traps for cats? What do I do? I had to leave the table for about 10 minutes to just go think. I said, okay, and on that note, we're going to take a break, because that was a good moment. All right, but who was seething? Oh my gosh. Okay, I need to know this story. Both of you. Okay, let's start with Jay. Go ahead.
So I am seething because it's the whole entire reason that our group is on a hiatus. I'd mentioned earlier that, beloved NPC has been lost between check-in points, switching between realms. I expected them to go to the Hells. No, they split the party because, they had a couple of them had extra characters, and one player was like, hey, work's coming up weird, I'm not going to be able to be here for a while. So it's like, okay, well, your player character can go off with the split, yada yada. And they went to the Shadowfell instead, so I had everything prepared for them to go to the Hells. Nope, just crumple that up, throw it over my shoulder, and I'm like, well, I have to rewrite everything. Literally everything.
This NPC is no longer a succubus, they are now a drow.
Yeah, right.
It's okay. It's okay. I know that none of them are here. I've already talked to my partner because I know he can keep his damn mouth shut. I've decided I'm introducing doppelgangers, and
Nice.
his minotaur that he sent off because he's currently playing with his bard with the main group. His minotaur's about to get replaced, and I know that he can keep his mouth shut. So this is my payback.
Oh no. All right. Who would like to go next?
Oh Christ. So
I don't think he's helping any of us.
No,
he didn't help me.
No.
So the question is, what is your biggest memory of players derailing your campaign? Okay, so there was a session almost over 4 years ago now, that the players were in the Feywild. They had arrived there. They had been brought there by an Eladrin, who was bringing them before a Fey council. And the session that I had planned was that the council was going to tell them that a certain artifact that the party had in its possession, the council was going to have to take away from them because they are technically not worthy and it was power beyond their control. Ooh. And so the only way that they would be able to keep said artifact is if they completed these trials that certain warriors within the Feywild would have to complete, sort of like the Jedi trials in Star Wars. And so there were different trials that they would have to complete that sort of challenged their characters in different ways. I thought that was a really cool idea.
Sounds really cool to me.
I planned meticulously, detailed every aspect of these trials and like what things and encounters and magics that each the party was going to have to encounter at some point or another. And it was going to take at least 3 sessions to get through. And they are standing before the council, and the 2 of the members of them basically, in so many words, insulted the Council of 9, these archfey, and say, you know what? Over our dead bodies, you fey pieces of shit, and we're gonna leave, and we're gonna take our book with us. And the archfeys didn't like that, and so I'm kind of at this point in the session, I'm just like, it would be extremely unrealistic if the archfey did nothing. And so the archfey did what they do. They just attacked them. They just attacked them outright. And so if battle starts happening within this citadel in the Feywild between my players, who are reasonable level, and these archfey, and there is a party member who has this massive hammer that helps them control certain aspects of the weather, but also opens portals. And so they're opening a portal to take them out of the Feywild, to take them back to a place that they were before. And one of the Archfey sees them open this portal, and he attacks the hammer. And he damages the jewel in the center of the hammer. And basically, my revenge on my players was that I DM'd the player, the owner of the hammer, and I was like, listen, your hammer is damaged. The portal remains open. You are able to control where you go. You have no control over when.
Oh shit!
And I left it at that.
Oh.
Oh.
And basically what ended up happening was the party barely makes it back through the portal alive, and they arrive back on this island called the Whispering Isle, and they're like, God, they're looking at each other. They're like, oh my God, guys, so glad we made it out of that alive. Crazy though, right? Yeah, we're all back. We're all alive. Everyone's good. Everyone's chill. All right, let's go find our ship and get out of here. They go down to the beach. The ship is gone. And I ask, the way I ended the session was I was like, okay, everyone give me a perception check. Everyone rolled reasonably high. And I'm like, you're all standing around wondering why the ship is gone. And then it's nighttime, and you all look at the night sky. And the smarter ones in your party, the people who are more learned, the wizards in your party, they look at the sky and they realize that based off of the position of the stars, that it is a full year that has gone by between when you went into the Feywild and when you are deposited back on this island. And so through the rest of the next several sessions, the party is they're discovering what the consequences of them not just doing my goddamn trial sessions and going through all of that, as opposed to, you know, all of the shit show that they now have to deal with, because certain party members, you know, are rather important in this material plane, and their absence has been noted. So I could talk about the shenanigans and the consequences of that, you know, 1 year gone missing for a long time. It ended up, it still affects the party to this day. And it's been over 4 years since we started playing. So that is my contribution.
I was expecting the players are learning the consequences of their actions instead.
They never learn. They never
do
learn.
what I fucking tell them.
There is a difference between feeling the consequences of their actions and learning.
Oh, yeah,
let's
no,
face it,
my players are learning the actions of their consequences now, because they're dealing with a future timeline that's 200 years into the future, and how their disappearance and their unsuccessful of this quest that they were on is now affecting the future.
Oh my gosh.
And that actually leads into one of my two favorite derailments. The first one is the one that just happened recently. My daughter's artificer was in the process, because they found a runic circle for teleportation, right? I have it standing upright because I'm a giant nerd, and it's a Stargate. My portals are Stargates. So I was like, all right, for this to happen, in order for you to properly read the runes, properly inscribe the right runes to teleport you where you need to go in this world, you got to give me a D100 check. Your D100 needs to beat mine. She rolls a 98.
Oh
wow.
To my 56. I was like, all right, here's the consequences of your actions. You open the portal and it takes you right back to your house. And then that's where, like I explained before, the ranger learns what happened to their house. That derailment problem was that fact that they were in the Underdark of my world, because it's a homebrew world.
yeah.
I had 3 to 4 more sessions of them traveling through the Underdark. And they were just like, there's a portal. We know the way home. Screw you, we're going home. My all-time favorite derailment, though, has to be, I was running Pathfinder first edition at the time, and we were doing Rise of the Rune Lords. There's a scene where you go below one of the cities, and there's a well that's cursed, and a succubus or an imp or something like that was at the bottom. Well, I had 2 druids in my party, and they're like, well, we both want to cast Purify Food and Drink, which is basically purifying water. It's like, okay, I'm gonna need you guys to give me a skill check. Give me a d20 roll for this. They're like, okay, double nat 20s.
Holy cow.
Yeah. I was like, okay, you purify this well. Now the building is collapsing in around you. Figure your way out. Because the well was holding the building together. That's what was powering the structure of this well. They're like, wait, what? I was like, yeah. Derailment, consequences of your actions. So yeah, those are my most recent derailment and my favorite derailment.
Beardick, you want to go next?
You appear to be
Button.
muted.
So I got it before I get into my little story. I got a question for Mr. Dandy DM, and that's, in your journey as a content creator and a role figure in the D&D community, over our dead bodies, you fey pieces of shit. Can we get that on a T-shirt? Some sort of merch, maybe a sticker, because I think I would wear that. I'd wear that all day long.
Over our dead bodies, you fey pieces of shit.
I can make a sticker.
Yeah.
Oh man.
That's
At the
basically
very
what my
least a
players
sticker, but
do.
I think it would look good on
Yeah.
a T-shirt. I'm just saying. It's funny you bring up this question, and the first thing that came to my mind is, myself as the baby DM making my characters roll for things that were super critical for the advancement of the story that I shouldn't have had them roll on, which they then failed the roll, which left me scrambling, which was really me just infuriating myself for setting that up that way. But my players, we tend to have a good back and forth. They infuriate me, I infuriate them.
Yep.
We had, and really, it's usually coming from me asking for it. And again, with this actual play group I have, these are younger players. They're getting to the table for the first time, and after some sessions, I'm telling them, we're storytelling together, we're world building, we're establishing. So one of the younger players, he was in middle school at the time, just decided everywhere we went, every NPC that he encountered, regardless of the actual stakes in play, was going to stop and ask if the person had seen his brother recently, which was a shock to me because when this started, I didn't even know he had a brother. But good on him for role playing and coming up with stuff. But when I say it was every NPC that we encountered,
Oh no.
it was every NPC. So this was a different kind of derailment, and I wanted to approach it delicately because he was doing what I asked. He was just doing a lot of it, and it was taking away from the story. So I turned the role of his brother, since it hadn't been established yet, into this legendary bard figure. And every time he asked an NPC in a new town, they would go, "Oh yes, you must be speaking of," and it would be his brother's name or a variation of it with a title. You mean Derry the Brave, or Durgar the Bold, or the Well Met, anything like that. And then I would list off about 10 to 12 bizarre accomplishments. when the one who defeated the Nega Hydra of the Barsoom Swamp, the one who charmed the Listerine Witch of the Bellows Mountains, and he just knew now that every time he asked this question, he was going to get an answer, and he was going to get a lot of it. So it turned into a nice balance where he still does it, but in moderation now. So we kind of worked it out.
Yeah, that tracks. That makes sense. That's hilarious. Oh my gosh.
It's a nice way to deal with it.
I had to come up with a long list of accomplishments to have in my pocket.
Right at that point, you're just going to start writing them down.
For me, I think we've all had as a DM where you have an encounter set up and you have a monster that you think is going to be an epic battle, and it fizzles. I mean, like,
Oh yeah.
totally just, and your session is done now because that was supposed to take several rounds of combat to get through, and they just killed it in one round because you didn't think about that. And
The dice gods give it, the dice gods take it
Dice
away.
gods take it away. So one of those, just really quick, it was like really early in our campaign, and they ended up going into this maze in the Underdark, and they came against an aboleth. And right before that, I had been helping one of the newer players. I've been working with a toxic DM that was kind of railroading her and telling her how to play her bard.
Oh.
So I spent like an hour with her going through all the bardic spells and how they could be used, what they do, what it really means, and situations that you could use it. And one of the ones I was talking about was Phantasmal Force, how you can, if you succeed, they'll actually feel what you're doing. Like if you make them think they're on fire, they're going to take damage. Well, they got in there and they stunned the aboleth. Well, they restrained the aboleth, and then she was able to get the Phantasmal Force off and said that it felt like it was in boiling water. So it started taking damage from the boiling water, and then summoned animal, and they killed my aboleth in one round and never got a shot off. And I was like, oh, crap.
No.
But I think that's happened to us a bunch of times. But I think my favorite storyline derailment happened. I had set up a chase scene. So they were on a ship and they were traveling across, and they picked up bubbles in the water, like a steam in the water, and it was a dragon turtle. And I had set it up as a chase, that they weren't going to fight this thing. They were going to try to get away. I had the whole chase thing going out. But the monk, who's all super friendly, hailed it down and tried to have a conversation with it. And she nat 20'd on her persuasion check against the dragon turtle. And yeah, nat 20s and skill checks, but that's not how I play it. And I was like, okay, he doesn't destroy your boat immediately. And they ended up talking. She just kept rolling so well that this dragon turtle now befriended her, and now she's like best friends with an ancient dragon turtle. But the whole session again was, this was not supposed to be a friend, even though it's friend shaped. It was supposed to be an enemy. That was my plan was going to plague them every time they got into a boat to go to a different continent. They were going to run into this dragon turtle as an adversary, and now he's an NPC that is friend. I was like, okay.
At least your chase scene didn't end up in a player feeble-minding themselves.
No, it did not. No, it did not. It did not end in that. It ended them getting a magic shell, and having to come back and complete the story because the ancient dragon turtle was so old. He didn't collect treasure anymore. He collected stories. So if you could give him a story that he wanted, I had to think of that, and that was like on the fly because it was supposed to happen. Like, oh shit, how am I going to do this? So he collects stories, and she was able to tell the story of where they were and how they came to be and why they were on the ocean. And she rolled again high. I was just like, oh, okay, this works.
But now they've got a dragon turtle that's a friend. But what if the dragon turtle is having a problem? Something's chasing it down. What could possibly be an enemy to an ancient dragon turtle, and how are the players going to handle that?
One
Thank
word.
you.
Cthulhu.
Giant kraken. So
It's a Grand Kraken. Yep.
I don't need Cthulhu.
we all need Cthulhu. Whether we want Cthulhu, we need Cthulhu.
Because there's another song you need stuck in your head.
No,
no.
I know exactly what song you're talking about.
Thank you. I'll be here all week.
Rude.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't even want to think about it until you said it. I
This is
wasn't
very
even
much-
going to
Everybody's thinking it. I'm
acknowledge it.
just saying it.
I was not going to acknowledge it.
This is very much off topic, but I gotta say it real quick. It'll take like 30 seconds. I like to watch bone throw videos just because I find the answers that they get very amusing. It's a simple yes or no question, and the bones tell you yes or no. Somebody asked this one TikToker I follow if Cthulhu liked that song about them, and the bones said yes. So just yep,
Outstanding.
that's the thing. Anyway, all right, so we are getting close to 11 now. Let's go ahead, unless anyone absolutely wants to share anything else before we go. Okay, I got one
unless
last.
anybody wanted to hear the feeble-minded story.
Did we get to the feeble mining story? Do you want to share the feeble mining story?
I mean, it's pretty funny,
Oh, tell
especially
us.
since somebody in here is another military branch. So,
We can do it. Go for it.
the chase that we had set up, the guy that was running a masquerade party that basically knocked out all the players, trapped them. They managed to break out. They're chasing him down. Our cleric, who's played by my ex-husband, is somehow at the beginning of this chase. Rolls a high enough perception check, sees him darting down a secret hallway. Looks at the party. Hey, he just went down there. What's in that chest? You're not going to chase after him? No. What's in the chest? Okay, are you going to inspect it? Or are you going to do anything? No, I'm just going to walk over and kick it. So let me get this straight. You're just going to walk over, kick open the chest, and you're not doing anything with it. No, what's in the chest?
Oh.
Roll me an intelligence save. He misses it by 1, and I just...
Oh, shit.
And I've never seen my ex-husband sober up faster, and he goes, "Oh God, I'm feeble-minded, aren't I?" Many crayon-eating jokes were made at that man's expense, and we told him that he basically turned himself into a Marine, which was great because he's ex-Army.
Oh, why would you do that to us? Oh.
We started asking him what his favorite crayon is, and the correct answer is blue.
As a former soldier, that hurts my hand.
That's what he gets for. That's what he gets for kicking open the chest without even inspecting it because he's drunk.
Yep, pretty much.
No, I'm gonna agree with you there. Oh man, that's hilarious. I'm sorry. All right, that was definitely worth it. Okay, well, I saved this one for last because I think it'll be a pretty simple one. What advice do you have for anyone who has expressed an interest playing or DMing for the first time? And especially when it comes to the DMing part, I think Brennan Lee Mulligan says it best when he says, just do it. Just do it. You don't have to be ready. You don't have to know all the rules. Just do it. Just start. It's the best way to learn. People want to play D&D or get into DMing. What would you say to them?
Oh, jeez.
I know the advice that I give when I'm at fair.
Mm-hmm.
So I get a lot of people who come into my booth, partly for the dice, partly for the baby dragons, and they tell me, hey, I've never played, I want to learn. I give them the recommendations of both Critical Role's Handbook or Helper, which breaks down a lot of stuff, and then I tell them about, Dimension 20's Adventuring Party, where they, talk about, hey, here's resources for how to get you started. And I tell them, hey, DMing's a little bit trickier because you're the one who has to set it up and run everything. But if you're worried about starting, grab a pre-made module. Grab Curse of Strahd. Grab, Rise of Tiamat or Horde of the Dragon Queen. And I'm just looking at the list of them that I have sitting on the shelf. But,
Yeah.
but if you're worried about starting, start with something that's pre-made rather than sitting there and forcing yourself to go, oh, let me just jump off the deep end with no floaties on and make it from scratch if it's your first time and you're really, really that scared about going, how do I do this? Or watch an actual play.
I like that. That's true.
So a quick story. A few years ago, I had been manager at my job from, promoted up for only maybe less than a year. And one of the younger kids working for us, he comes up to me one day and says, can I speak to you in your office, please? I'm like, oh yeah, sure, absolutely. That's what I'm saying out loud, but inside I'm like, oh my God, what is he going to tell me? This is something serious. I'm not ready for this. How am I going to handle this? And we sit down, I'm like, hey man, what's up? And he's like, so I'm going to run my first session of D&D tonight, and I know you play, and you can't do that to me, man. But
Context.
Oh, that's hilarious. I'm sorry.
the specific advice I would give to someone like that, more so someone getting for the first time, but it could be applied to a new player too, is there's a lot of actual play stuff out right now, and it runs the gamut, and all of it is potentially good. Some of it's amateurish, some of it is ultra professionalism. Don't feel like that you have to live up to any set of standards in any of those actual plays. And I always think of the McElroy brothers, and I love the first season of the Adventure Zone. I love their other stuff too, but that's what got me into it. But I'm like, you're gonna want to sit down and have a fun time with your friends where you're all laughing and telling jokes just like they do. But you got to remember, some of those jokes didn't always land. Some of that was edited. You don't sit down to have your experience. Don't sit down to have somebody else's experience. Sit down to have a good time. And then the more generic advice I would give to either one of those people in those roles is just know that everybody at that table is rooting for you, and everybody there is there to have a good time. Nobody's sitting down at that table to have a bad time. If you are a newcomer entering a group of players, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be so excited that you're giving it a try and sitting down with them, and they're going to help you. They're going to be excited you're there trying it. And if you're DMing for the first time, oh my God, you're the reason that these people are getting to play, and they're going to love you for that. So breathe. And again, just remember, everyone there is rooting for you. No one is there to have a bad time.
Absolutely.
Don't agree.
The dog agrees.
Dog
Yeah.
agrees.
Ooh.
He does. I think for me, one of the things that I like to tell people is you can't control everything, even though you want to. Right. So I see a lot of new DMs trying to script out everything they're going to say. When describing this or describing that, well, I don't know all the rules. I got to write this down. I got to have this storyline, and they wrap themselves up on being perfect and not having any ums or ahs. And you have to go with the flow. It's role playing, and you have to tell your story. That you're telling a story. You're not reading a book. And I think that's the biggest thing I can say and tell a new DM is tell your story. Don't read your story to somebody. Tell your story to somebody, and the players are going to latch on and take it from you and go. And then you just have to roll with them. And I also say, even Matt Mercer looks up the rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can see him in every live play. He's got his phone out and he's looking up spells or he's looking up player handbook. None of us know all the rules. And at the worst part, you're the DM. You make the rules. You just make it up as you go and you accept it. And it specifically says that. And then it says it right in there. These are guidelines.
Nice.
But I think that's one of the things, I see the two biggest things I see a lot of new DMs trip over is I don't know all the rules. Who cares? Make them up as you go or learn them as you go. If you make a wrong call on session 1, now it's your new canon, right? You just play with it. And don't overscript everything.
Yep, I love that. I really do.
Because that goes back to the derail thing. You try to overscript something, that first derailment, now you're scrambling, you don't know what to do.
Your players will throw hurdles at you. We can all attest to that.
Yep.
Anyone else?
I was thinking about something that was said earlier. I don't remember who it was. But the idea of just picking up a module. I actually think that's one of the biggest obstacles to new players nowadays is they see all of these books. They see all of these books and they see so much reading that they're going to have to do. When actually all they need really is in terms of books, they really, and sometimes they don't even need the book. They can find the rules online. D&D Beyond, you just set up an account. But I feel like as long as you have a story and you have players and the players are there to tell that story with you. And if you come in with that understanding that they're there to tell the story with you, you're going to be fine. I think a lot of the time, not that I'm discouraging reading or, buying a module and, jumping in that way. I feel like sometimes the industry and the need to sell all of these books makes it prohibitive, or the perception is it can be prohibitive for people when all they need really is just their own story and their own, their own joy that they bring to playing a game and rolling a dice and sitting down at a table with friends. If you have a story, you have dice, and you have your friends, you're good.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. I agree with that too. Here.
And I'll piggyback off of that and say to the DMs out there, if your players come back to your table, you are doing a great job.
Absolutely.
I know as DMs, we all have imposter syndrome. We all critique ourselves and what we could have done better, after the game's over. But if they keep coming back, you are a good DM. You're doing a great job.
Exactly.
All right, everybody. Oh, one more?
Oh,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, with piggybacking off of the imposter syndrome thing, it's kind of been coined in the D&D sphere as like the Mercer effect.
100%.
And 100%, like, if you are going and getting an idea of running things through the actual plays, and as others have said, do not hold yourselves to those professional level standards.
Right.
Because 100%, these are some people who have been doing this since they could read. Some of these people are trained actors. Some of these people are very much so like, hey, this is literally my job. If you are sitting here worried about bringing it to the level of Brennan Lee Mulligan or Matt Mercer or Abria or any of these other like really big DMs who do a very fantastic job, especially with their storytelling and everything else, then look at yourself, especially if your players are sitting there and trying to give you flack for it and go, okay, are you going to bring it like Travis? Are you going to bring it like Laura? Are you going to sit here and bring it like all of these other professional players? Remember that we are here having fun.
Exactly.
Do not hold yourself to the standards of a professional,
Right.
whether that's in quotations or not.
Yeah, I 100% agree with everything that's been said, as well as I want to add my own. Handbook Helper is a great place to start. Dark, you said something else, and Joe Cat's videos is a perfect place to get in if you want to laugh, but also learn something. Grab the starter set. Grab the first little module that comes pre-generated with everything as a new DM.
We're on
Don't
sale
be
at
afraid-
Target.
Yeah, right? Don't be afraid to research. Don't be afraid to mess up. Embrace improv. 100% embrace the improv, because the improv, for me, is going to be one of the biggest things when it comes to working the story, because your players are going to throw that proverbial monkey wrench. But don't worry about it. Yes, derailments will happen. Yes, monkey wrenches will happen. Just roll with it. And don't be afraid to sit behind that screen and have fun.
I think that's a wonderful spot to wrap up. I want to thank everybody who came here to sit at the table with us today and talk about this game that we love. I want to thank everyone who's been with us to watch this stream. Let's go ahead and remind everybody who we are, where they can find us, and I'm sure that I can speak for myself only, but I'm sure that everybody here would be willing to help anybody who had a question or just needed a little advice on D&D or DMing. But let's start at the bottom and work our way back up. Wolfpack Dice, if you wouldn't mind, remind everybody who you are and where they can find you.
Hey, Greg, Wolfpack Dice on all the platforms. Yeah, that's where you can find me. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here and joining us, and all the great comments and questions. I had an amazing time. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Dark Crescent Studio. Take it away, Jay.
All right, I'm Jalea with Dark Crescent Studio. You guys can find me most places under Dark Crescent Studio. Since you did mention earlier about the fact that I've been sponsoring for Roll for Cake and whatnot, I do have 15% off in my store with code CAKE. So get yourself some fun stuff. And, you know, for everybody that's still here, remember to eat, hydrate, take your meds if you need to, and, you know, have fun.
She has psychic damage dice, apparently, that I need to get a set of for all those puns that are going to come my way. Chaotic Nerd, tell us about yourself.
I am on most socials, either under Demo Cable or mostly on TikTok under my real name, which is @CharlesSloan. But I go by Chaotic Nerd there, and I do miniature paintings and just mostly repost most of the D&D stuff as much as I can. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Awesome. Yeah, go follow him so he can do live, so we can do miniature painting together, because I don't get anything done unless I have somebody to talk to.
Well, I can join lives, I think.
We'll have to test.
Yes, we will. Once I get the room back up.
We'll get to it.
Yep, I'm working on it.
Mr. Dandy DM. Andy, take it away.
Yes. I can be found as Mr. Dandy DM on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all the socials. Oh, Threads. Threads is also a really good place.
Yeah.
If you are not a big supporter of Elon Musk and you really are looking for an incredible, vibrant TTRPG community, not just D&D, but TTRPG community in general, go find it on Threads. It's there. It really is. It is all. There's always something being talked about, and it's always very respectful, and it's always, I'm amazed to say, just not toxic. So find me on Threads. Also, consider catching our Flag Means Doom, there's Survivors of Ashkelon, and Shadows of Ashkelon on my YouTube channel.
I just pulled up Threads so I could remember to take a look at that. Typed in TTRPG in the search bar, and the first thing that came up was your post about tonight's stream.
Yep.
Okay. All right. And last but not least, we have Bearded Inspiration.
Hey, everybody, you can find me as Beardic Inspiration. That's Beardic_Inspiration on all the socials. If you like D&D content, come check me out. I do a lot of character stuff. It has been, I was actually really excited about tonight because in my character creations, sometimes I roll warlocks, and I want to say at least 3 or 4 times I have given people's characters, Mr. Dandy DMs, a good patron as their patron, and he has very willingly played along, which I have absolutely loved because warlocks are one of my favorite characters to create. So come on down, check out those socials if you have a chance, also on Threads. And if you're interested in other types of TTRPG, I'd ask you to come check out the Beggar Talk Book Club on TikTok and Instagram. We're still getting the ball rolling and kind of evolving and growing, but I love what this group is doing so far, and I'd love for you to come check that out too. But on the topic of new players and DMs and coming to the table to have a good time, I came here to have a good time with you all, and you're all amazing people, and I've had a blast talking with you tonight.
Thank you, everybody, for coming on.
you.
And I loved having you all on. You're a good group. You all have good synergy together. So we might have to do this another time. I've been your host, Nerdy Teacher, here for Crypts and Cryptids. Catch Roll for Cake on July 3rd and Mountain of Mystery on July 13th. And catch a lot of us in October at the Norse Forge Gathering. So we're making our plans for that. Dark Crescent Studios will be there selling her dice, and I will probably be a patron at that point if I make enough money, because I will also be there as a vendor selling my D&D stickers. So catch us all on TikTok. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us. And yeah, all I can say is thank you again, and may all of your rolls be crits. Have a good night, everybody.
All right. Peace out, nerds.